Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're online. Welcome to our Waldner Labcafé online. My name is Rüdiger Leesten, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you today, Labcafé. I'm truly excited to present to you three outstanding projects from the year 2024. Each one a remarkable example of innovation, collaboration, and excellence in laboratory design and infrastructure. But before we begin, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to my colleague Alexander Biller. Alexander, your dedication and passion have shaped this event over the past years, and it's an honor for me to continue this initiative in your spirit. Thank you for your outstanding commitment. Let us turn our attention to the inspiring projects ahead. I hope you enjoy the presentations and the exchange of ideas that makes this format so unique. Our topic today, Best Labs 2024. Today, we are celebrating innovation, creativity, and scientific progress. Together, we are presenting the most exciting projects all over the world and that are shaping the future for research with great architecture and innovation lab design. We look forward to extraordinary insights and inspiring exchange. Please note that we have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have any questions, please write it in the chat and we will answer them after the presentation. For today, we have fantastic speakers. I like to say, let's start, have a coffee, lean back, and enjoy this 100 project. Take a copy and be inspired. For our introduction, I'd like to welcome David Sutton. We start with David Sutton. He is the Executive Director and General Counsel of the Scientific Equipment and Furniture Association, shortly good known as SEFA. With a legal and association management background, he has led SEFA in the developing globally recognized standards for laboratory furniture and equipment. David is a strong advocate for safety, sustainability, and innovation in lab environments, working closely with industry leaders to promote the best practice worldwide. He has been providing legal and management services for SEFA for more than 30 years. David is also a regular speaker at conferences and trade shows throughout the world concerning important association initiatives such as SEFA Lab of the Year. David, it's your turn.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. So I want to talk to everybody about the SEFA Lab of the Year competition. And just to give you a sense of the award that's given out each year to only one project in the world, the entire world, that receives this prestigious award. And I must say that the award is international in scope. There have been projects that have been honored throughout the years from all over the world. But before I do that, let me talk a little bit give you a little background about SEFA, the Scientific Equipment and Furniture Association. First of all, we have 160 members from 28 different countries. And you can see that we're represented just about everywhere in the world with our members. We have three basic categories of membership. Executive members are the manufacturers, sustaining members, dealers, distributors, and installers, associate members, architects, and lab planners. Now, it's interesting to note that if you're a manufacturer of laboratory furniture or related equipment, such as fixtures or work surfaces, things like that, you must establish through one of our approved test labs that you make at least one product that meets our rigorous standards, okay, performance-based standards. So that's important. There is one manufacturer of SEFA that does not meet at least one of those standards. We also have an advisory board. We currently have 14 members of that advisory board, and these are some of the leading lab planners and architects that specialize in designing laboratory buildings. And what we like about this group, this current group, and it's going to be expanded in the next 6 months or so, is that we have representation from all over the world again. United States, Dario Tonelli from Switzerland. We have Sanjay Piruit from India. We have Grace Chen from China, and the rest of our group actually does projects all over the world. So it truly is an international group of influential lab architects. Now, I kind of call this the super glue of SEFA. This is what really keeps us together, that there's 16 different performance-based standards for the products that the executive members make. And you notice at the bottom of this slide that there are two standards that are in draft form: lab grade flooring and lab grade washers. These are things that it's been brought to our attention that require SEFA's attention. And we are uniquely situated to organize these types of groups, to get the leading experts in the world, to get our lab planners and architects are involved in SEFA, to participate in writing these standards. And it's an open group in terms of anybody can participate in the writing of these standards, modification of them, and improvement of those standards. We also do a global market survey, which is really important to our members. And we not only survey the members themselves, but also non-members that are out there to try to get a sense of how big the market is. And this is just one page of a 60-page report. We do this every 2 years. And you can see that, just to give you a sense of what's going on, as we believe that by 2027, the global market for laboratory furniture, related equipment, enclosures will be approximately $3.5 billion. Okay, and that's not double counting what the dealers sell. This is basically the value of the furniture and related equipment that is made by the manufacturers throughout the world. So keep that in mind. Also, importantly enough, the company that does our market survey also tries to project how fast the market is growing, and you could see that it is expected to grow at a compounded annual rate between 2022 and 2027 of 6.8%. So this kind of information is super important to our members. Now, we also have an annual meeting in the United States every year. This year, it's November 5th through 7th in Miami, Florida. It's filled with lots of presentations that are made by the architects and lab planners, but also that super glue that keeps us together, starting on Thursday afternoon and going in through Friday until lunchtime. There are lots and lots of committee meetings that take place to help write these standards. Now, to get back to the Lab of the Year, it is a global award that started in 1967 and recognize innovation, lab design, and excellence in execution. And we have gotten, we welcome submissions from all over the world, and we do get them from all over the world. There's no question about it. I mean, we got a project from the Sudan, believe it or not. So it's not unusual to see that. And this picture, this slide just kind of gives you a sense of where these projects are. There's a project in South Australia, South Korea, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the UK, Manhattan. So there are projects from all over the world that have gotten this award for Lab of the Year. And over the last 5 years, from 2020 until now, SEFA has taken over this competition. The organization that ran it since 1967 ran into some financial trouble in 2019. And our advisory board members encouraged us to take over this competition and run it. And it's been run extremely well, I think, by our advisory board members. And so these are the projects that have won in the last 5 years. At the top left is the Rockefeller University River Campus project in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, overlooking the East River. Harvard University Science and Engineering Complex in 2021. 2022 was the Sandy Weill project at UC San Francisco. 2023 was a project at Stanford University. And of course, 2024 was the PRED project in Basel, Switzerland. And many of our SEFA members are involved in these projects. You don't have to be a SEFA member to win the award. But, this is an interesting one in the sense that you can see how international in scope this project was. Even though it's in the United States, Bacasa is a furniture manufacturer and fume manufacturer from Milan, Italy. The work surfaces are both the American Epoxy Scientific and Fundamax. Fundamax is based in Europe. Asicos also based in Europe, and Laboratory Fixtures was FAR as well as Water Saver. So we took a lot of pride in to see how international in scope some of these projects are, not only where they're located, but the international nature of the people that are involved. This is another good example. This is the Harvard University Science and Engineering complex project it's not in Cambridge. It's across the Charles River can't remember the exact town it is, but so Benisch Architekten is really from Stuttgart, Germany. So the architectural firm that designed this building is a German company. You also have Bureau Happold Consulting Engineers, which is I think based in Europe as well. And so you've got just people from all over the world and organizations from all over the world involved in these projects. This is a great picture of the Joan and Sanford Weill Neurosciences Building, UC San Francisco, University of California at San Francisco. These are the folks that were involved in it. Betco Lab is a Canadian company. Smith Group is based in the United States, as well as Mark Cavagnero, and as well as American Epoxy and Water Saver Faucet. Stanford University. So here's an interesting example of the funding coming from Wu Tsai. Okay, money that was earned in China, moved to the United States, donated money to Stanford University to build this beautiful neuroscience institute. The people involved in this project, Iniad Architects, which is one of the leading firms. Mott Manufacturing, again from Canada, Labcafé from the United States, Durcon, etc. So once again, the international influence of these projects is quite amazing. And then, of course, the PRED project with Herzog and Murin from Switzerland, Laborplan Tonelli, Dario Tonelli is on our advisory board. And then, of course, we have Waldner, Brown, Fundamax, GCE, Miele, and SCAT, all European-based companies. So, once again, and quite frankly, I was pleased that the judges decided to pick a project that wasn't in the United States last year. That was a good thing. So the way we pick the judges is an interesting process. The deadline to submit a project is always August 1st. And we wait until the projects come in, and we never know what's coming in. And believe it or not, most of the projects come in the last 2 days before the deadline. And then we determine who does not have a conflict of interest, because we want the judging panel to be conflict-free. And then we start to look at who can act as a judge and who wants to be a judge. We always like to pick somebody that was involved in the previous year's winning project. So we picked Don Weinrich, a partner at Iniad Architects. Laura Halverson is a principal and project manager at Affiliate Engineers. They've submitted and won many times Lab of the Year. Sanjay is one of our advisory board members from India. Charlie Klee is a principal at Payette. And we had Philippe Fristeau, who represents what I would call the end users. And he is in charge of research and innovation for L'Oreal throughout the world. So it was nice to have an end user, that perspective on this judging panel. Then, of course, we had Brian Richard, who we always pick somebody who's the chief judge. So Brian was the chief judge for this particular year's panel of judges. And this has worked out extremely well over the years. Now, to be eligible for 2025, the project has to have been substantially completed and operational after January 1, 2022. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's the key date. It could be a renovated or adaptive reuse project. Most of the times it's new laboratories. And what we've done now recently is the judges will pick a Lab of the Year winner and a High Honors Award winner. And then we will have them come to our annual meeting and make presentations. An announcement will be made at the annual meeting as to who wins High Honors and who wins the Lab of the Year. Okay, now I know this is a little hard to read, but this is something that was designed by the advisory board. There's 12 criteria, and all of this is laid out on the SEFA website at sefalabs.com. We wanted it to be as transparent as possible. We wanted everybody to see the criteria that was going to be used to judge the project. And what we do is we really focus the judge's attention on those 12 criteria. And this is how we do it. We give each of them a score sheet, okay? A score sheet for each one of the projects that get submitted. And the judges from a scale of 1 to 5 will rate each project. So on the left side will be the name of the project. On the right side is their scores. And this is what we do. And what we made it out, and the advisory board decided to do this. They decided that they didn't want these score sheets to be exchanged with other advisory board members because they felt it might influence them too much. We wait until there's at least 2 meetings of the judges in which they discuss in depth each one of the projects. And then after they've finished all their discussions, we then let them know what the score sheets show. So that's how we've been doing it for the last couple of years, and it's worked extremely well. This is an example of what a score sheet looks like. So on the left side would be the name of a project, and then you see the scores for each one of those 12 criteria, and then you see the raw scores. And we look at certain things. We do look at the raw score. Believe it or not, the project that has the highest score, usually that's the consensus before the judges even see these score sheets as to who wins Lab of the Year. And this is just an example from 2023. Now, I mentioned before at the annual conference, and Stephen's familiar with this, that this is what we do. We have the 2 finalists come to our annual conference and they make a presentation. And this year the presentations will take place between 11:30 a.m. and 12:45. And then after those presentations are made, the judges that are attending the conference will speak, and they will then announce who has won and who hasn't. All of this is videotaped. So this is the panel of the finalists from our annual conference last year at Torrey Pines near San Diego, La Jolla, San Diego, California. And this is, I think, just before we started the presentations. And as I said, after those presentations are made, the announcement of who the winner is and who the High Honors Award winner is made. And again, as I said before, conflict-free judging panel. Project deadline is August 1st. And I want to mention that on September 17 and 20 this year at ILMAC in Basel, Switzerland, just so happens that since our winner is in Basel, Switzerland, we're going to have a panel discussion at ILMAC on September 17 in the afternoon, and that will be followed by a lab tour, because we always do a lab tour of the Lab of the Year winner, no matter where it is in the world. Just so happened to work out just great with ILMAC, and so that's what's going to happen. We are taking reservations for that lab tour, and I think that we're going to have a really great panel discussion during ILMAC itself. If anybody has any questions about the Lab of the Year competition, you should visit us at sefalabs.com, or you can always call or email us, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. And I just want to finish with a quote from Matt Noblet. He's the gentleman from Benish Architect and that won in 2021 at Harvard University. He said this about the Lab of the Year Award. The list of SEFA Lab of the Year Award winners demonstrates that truly great research environments that are simultaneously great architecture are not only possible, but vital to the continued relevance of our profession. To be honored with Lab of the Year is to join a decades-long legacy whose humanity is measured as much by the spaces created, by the scientific achievements that have been realized within them. And I think that that sort of expresses very well what it means to win Lab of the Year. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you, Waldner, for allowing me to make this presentation about the Lab of the Year competition.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you for this private inside view of how you conflict-free make the judgment of the Lab of the Year every year to create a new winner. And that's the reason why we should start now with our Impulse 1 with the winner, the Roche Piret Innovation Center in Basel. And this is the award winner 2024 from the SEFA Lab of the Year. And I really like to introduce you Dr. Achim Grenz. Dr. Achim Grenz serves as a project leader at the Piret Innovation Center at Roche Basel, where he plays a key role in shaping the future of research infrastructure. His work focused on developing flexible, user-centric, and sustainable laboratory environments that support cutting-edge pharmaceutical research and early development. At Roche, Dr. Grenz has been instrumental in driving forward-thinking infrastructure concepts that foster collaboration and innovation. His contribution reflects a deep understanding of how physical spaces can empower scientific discovery and interdisciplinary teamwork. Please, Achim, it's your turn.
Thank you, Rüdiger. Thank you for having me. I am very honored, and I'm only one of many who actually contributed to this project for quite some time. It was for us once in a lifetime project, or for us means especially for me, since I'm started on that project in 2013 with many of the project teams. Some of them you've seen on the photo. I think in total I'm here only one face, and you will see today of more than 1,000 people who've been working on this for more than a year. It's been prestigious award. Thank you very much for the SEFA organization to grant it to us as a Piret Center. I mentioned once in a lifetime. That was basically the second slide I ever saw for that when a colleague of mine, Gio Adam, actually showed that, introduced us to that project. It is because you don't build as a user coming from a reuser side of into such a project, you don't build that very often. Usually these buildings last for quite some time, and it is only every 50 years when you build it again. So next time I'll probably not be around when Roche is doing that. But this was also one of the drivers that we had. So our old infrastructure here in Switzerland, in Basel, Switzerland, was quite outdated, 50, 60, 70 years old. Took us in our changing environment, took us heaps of efforts to maintain it or to adapt it to the new research areas that we walked into as an organization. So there was an idea to consolidate our research facilities and renew our entire research park. And you see that on the left-hand side. This is our future picture. Right now, we are talking about these three buildings. That's the Piret Center, the award-winning project of the SEFA prize last year. And there is another 3 dots in there, which actually include a vivarium and the CMC facility and the Institute of Human Biology, which will then comprise of the entire landscape of what we have here in Basel, Switzerland, in our research, pharma research and early development activity. Now, in only a few minutes, you can't tell much about the entire journey of such a project and everything that weighed in. So I condensed a little bit and will focus on 1 or 2 topics only. But what I wanted to give you is we didn't invent that from you. That wasn't just us in a room and a white sheet of paper and all of that happens. We went to see many different facilities around the world. We had a long list and a short list. We visited more than 30 of brilliant, fantastic research facilities around the world at when we were in PI phase and then concept design phase for these buildings. Ultimately, we condensed out of that what would work for our community. And there are fantastic buildings out there, and there are fantastic research centers out there that may or may not work for you as a research community and research facility in that special place where we are here. So what we came up with, what would work for us, was stolen pride from everything that we saw and adapted to what we wanted to create here in Basel. And one thing coming from a very distributed multi-facility kind of organization, we wanted to bring them all into one centric place. We wanted to mix the function, go away from silos, having open spaces. Our old buildings were traditionally very, very small labs for 2 to 3 people, 30 to 70 square meters. We wanted to change that. Everyone is doing that now. We didn't want to have department setting anymore as we had before. So walking away from the silos more into an integrated research community that mixes disciplines. We obviously needed to do a little bit of space optimization. We had a benchmark done, so we've been growing out of proportion here and then over time. And one thing that came with visiting a lot of these fantastic buildings out there is that the bigger you are and the more scientists you want to bring in one roof, the more anonymous it can get for a community. We were building for 1,800 scientists, and we saw facilities that do the same, that we said, okay, that is maybe a bit too big for us. So we tried to break that down into smaller pieces to make it easier digestible for the human brain and relate to feeling home-based. I'll come to that in a second. And obviously what we also wanted to create is we wanted, I saw that on your slides, David, I love to see that, the wow effect. So we wanted to create a place that is, that people actually want to be there, that is great places to be, that are where you don't feel like, yeah, I need to be here, but I want to be here, and to have that pride. So in a nutshell, what is the project? The project actually is pretty large in size. So the building perimeter that we have stretches 170 by 80 meters in its longest distances. So it's quite a complex, quite big one. It's got 6 underground floors. Each of those underground floors has a floor plate of 10,000 square meters on its own. And above this underground facility, we have 4 buildings, 3 of which are actually what we consider being the PRED center, because this is where our PRED organization with 1,800 people sits in here in these towers. From left to right, there is an office building. We call it Building 5, 5-story office building for more than 300 people working with us. And then we have the lab buildings 6 and 7, 72 and 140 meters high. So total of some 40 floors in these high-rise building above ground, 32 of them of which are pure lab floors. And those host spaces for more than 800 wet lab scientists and their writer desks in a more office environment, plus another additional office environments. The center as such is obviously self-sufficient in a way to work there, so we do have the meeting rooms and other facilities in there as well, the cafeterias and conference rooms. On the side of the 4th building that's on the side of that complex, it's building 4. This is a convention center, also an auditorium for 200 people, and plus a couple of classrooms for bigger breakout session or conference settings and breakout rooms and stuff, plus an additional office space. So altogether, this is quite an amazing complex in size and in dimensions, and we are very happy and very proud to be here as a research organization on this campus in Basel. Mentioned that the lower floors, 4 of the 6 lower floors are parking garage area, so it's also very convenient for us here. And obviously bicycle places, and we also have 300 motorbikes to be parked in that parking garage. So very, very convenient for us. Now, focusing in these few minutes, focusing on very few topics. One of the key driving principles of how to combine architecture with that lab building and the way we work and how our community works is we wanted to find ways to foster communication, collaboration, and then create spaces where we actually have these unplanned encounters. So we can meet with colleagues by setting up a meeting at 9 o'clock in room X, but this is not exactly where innovation comes from. This is not exactly where we want to go. What we've seen in other places is when you mix the disciplines, when you have these commonly used spaces, this is like in my old times at the university, it's like the coffee shop. You got the best information at the coffee shop and at the copy shop. And we wanted to have these kind of facilities and areas in our system as well. So one of the ideas is that the ground floor of these 4 buildings is actually connected by something that we dubbed Avenue. It's a huge, long space that has a lot of amenities around. There is a cafeteria, there's a takeaway cafeteria. This is actually where your entrance is. And deliberately, we choose only to have one single entrance, which is where this number 1 is here. So everyone should come through that entrance and actually walk down this the avenue down here to find its way to his office. Idea here, use that space commonly, meet people that you didn't plan to meet, bump into people, and have conversations there as well. Obviously, then if we want to have it and want to make it a nice place, it shouldn't be like just an aisle combining with a few doors on the left and right. We wanted to make it a very convenient and nicely looking space. And you see there is seating areas. There's different types of seating areas in the different areas of the avenue, which actually you can use for different. You can just sit there because you're half an hour early to a meeting when you come to the building and just do some emails, or you can even have little more secluded areas where you have meetings with 1 or 2 or 3 people of yours, and it's actually very nice to be. I mentioned in the beginning that we wanted ways to break down a structure for 1,800 people into smaller compartments that are more human digestible, or for the brain more digestible. So we decided to split those 40 plus floors or 45 floors that we have in total over 3 buildings into compartments or smaller sections of 3 floors each, which we call neighborhoods. And then we needed to find ways how to combine these. And again, high-rise buildings are not that easy when it comes to personal traveling. You always go elevator up or elevator down and then just cross to the other building. We wanted to provide different ways of doing this and add it to a minimum of 2 skyways between the 2 buildings with different functions. More detail to that in a different talk. And then we added a couple of very nice places, these wanna-be-there places, which we designed specifically for the people actually to go there, meet up, find this is the place where you want to be between the meetings, between the hours in the lab, just to have a chat with a colleague or so. A couple of those, this is, for example, the top floor cafeteria, picture of the top floor cafeteria in the 70-meter high building. So you can have your lunch here. This is warm lunches that you can have. And when you look out of the window, you have a beautiful view across the city from 70 meters above ground. Wonderful, facing west. So if you do it in the late hours, it's a wonderful sunset on the French side of the border. It's great. Top floor of building 7 at more than 100 meters above the city. This is by design different to the look and feel of the building as such. It is a billiard table, it's a recreation. You have a little kitchenette, you can have your lunches here, but you can also go and hide away, find some quiet spaces here. For example, we have put a library, British library style there, no phones allowed, no talking allowed. If you really want to sort of get away from the buzz, get away from people, need to concentrate to read a paper or do something really quiet on your own, not being disturbed, this is where you want to go. And again here, this is the window here in the back of the one who took the picture is facing the city, 100 meters above ground. It's a fantastic, actually, I like that place very much to be there. So neighborhoods, when I talked about neighborhoods, why is that? If you meet 500 people, you always feel like 1 in 500. If you meet 150 people, 100 to 150 people, it's after a while it feels like your family. So we broke down these structures into compartments of 3 floors, which we call neighborhood. by design of what we need in lab space and then what office space we can have, it's about up to 150 scientists max. This is where you feel home. This is your home base. This is a way to break down that structure. And really, it looks like that you have an upper and a lower floor, which is basically half wet lab and half the office area, write-up area where you prep and do the aftermath of your experiments. And the interlinking part in the middle, we call it the marketplace floor. This is a little different. It has a little smaller lab, but also lab and office area. But there's where the kitchen is. There's where the larger meeting rooms for group meetings are. And the idea here is this is the only place for these 150 people where they find the coffee machine. So no matter where you are in these floors, you need to go to that middle floor in the coffee machine, and you share that with all the people around you. And mixing disciplines here is fairly easy. Each floor has a different discipline in it. So it could be chemistry, oncology, and toxicology in one neighborhood. So you make these different disciplines talking to each other at the coffee machine or meeting each other and not being siloed and hidden away in their own with their own expertise only. They are exposed to different thoughts and different ideas and conversations that they could overhear. Why only 3 floors, not 4 or 5? Not one I talked about. It is the size. So we wanted to reduce it to about 100 to 150 people. And the other people, we in Switzerland, we are lazy. We're not walking more than 2 flights of stairs. So you go either 1 floor down or 1 floor up, and that is what we do. There is actually also signs about this, not only for Switzerland, that if you have the choice of using an elevator to go 2 floors or a stairs, the predominant number of people would use the elevator. That's different if you only cross 1 floor in height. Last thing, I rushed through that, and it's only 2 or 3 slides here. About the modularity, because we have a lab building. I think what we built was a very flexible lab building. The lab area is usually in the one side of the building. That's a wet lab area, and you see these little checkerboards here. This is our module system. So it's a grid system, a modular system, highly flexible. One grid size is 3m40s by 3m40s, and actually we can put a wall around these 340 by 340 and call that a lab. It would be an 11 square meter lab, but it's all equipped. It has everything from heating, from cooling, from media, from walls, from ventilation. We can build that. Obviously, we can set these walls on all these red lines and so separate the entire wet lab space into smaller sections as needed. We want to have it as big as possible for every lab, but sometimes you need, for separation of biosafety levels, so you need to separate one room from another, or for noise reasons. And we can put these walls into every of these red lines. The yellow wall that's depicted here actually separates the wet lab from the office area. So that's fire compartment setting wall and hygiene wall. We also can move that around in the building or on the floor to give us different sizes of lab on any given floor. Anything from like 1/3 of the lab to more than 60% of the floor space being a wet lab and the rest being the office. And all this space, the entirety of this has a pre-installed, very high-tech media ceiling, and that ceiling, we call it the static fit-out of that whole building. That is a 90-centimeter package that has everything. As I said, ventilation, all the media that you would need, all the heating, cooling that you would need, etc., etc., etc. It is already there, whether we need it or not for the first one. It's already there, giving us all the flexibility on the 2.90 m area under the ceiling to put any lab that we want in any configuration that we want. And this is a tribute to the flexibility and the need for adapting lab space to the varying and differing needs over time of a research organization. When one department grows, when a certain type of activity grows, when a certain automation comes in, all that we need to do is change the flexible part of the lab, not the static part, because that has 90% of what you would ever need. I say 90% because there's always, we didn't put steam or something into every of those square meter of lab. This is so if you go that far into an high-tech end or into an automation end, then we would have to adapt that and find that out. We found ways in several places in the building to do so. It's no longer that modular, but for the vast majority of all our space, we are in this modular case, and we turn that around in almost no time. So last slide. Altogether, it's been an endeavor to get in there and to build that building, plan that building. Now that we have it, this is a little tech heavy here, but it's a huge complex with 10 years of development and building from PI phase to handover. It's a massive structure. We turn over more than 900,000 cubic meters of air every hour between the lab buildings, the convention center, and the parking garage shared, and 23 HVAC units. So it's a massive structure that we put in here, and it's working nicely. Handover was more than a year ago. We finished moving in November last year, and we're now working in that facility since then. I depicted, I put some energy numbers in here, what the connected energies are to this whole building complex. This is another whole story to talk about how energy efficient it is. Actually, compared to our old buildings and the facilities that we moved out to, we basically reduced the specific energy consumption by half, roughly. With that, I finish, and thank you again for inviting, and back to you, Rüdiger.
Thank you very much, especially for your point of view, how your design was created and what was a driver for your design. Thank you very much for that. And it's my turn to step over to the next impulse, number 2. It's Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, Building 201 in Maryland in the States. And for this, we could get Stephen Blair, PE lead. AAP is a principal and science technology practice director at Canon Design, a global architecture and engineering firm with a career dedicated advancing scientific discovery through design. Stephen leads Canon Design's award-winning science and technology practice. He specializes in creating high-performance research environments that empower scientists across sectors from life science and healthcare to space exploration. His work supports institutions like the US Department of Energy, Novartis, and Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory. Stephen is known for a champion space that break down silos, foster collaboration, and elevate research potential, ensuring that science not only thrives but accelerates. Stephen, we are really hot on your presentation. It's your turn.
Super. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about our project. Although we were not selected as the laboratory of the year, since the P-Red Center is in Basel, Switzerland, I like to say that the Johns Hopkins project is the best laboratory in the United States. So I'm coming from Washington, D.C. So good morning to you for those in my time zone, and good afternoon to the rest. So Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, this is a research campus of more than 8,000 scientists, engineers, and administrative personnel. It's located several miles from the Johns Hopkins University and the Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's designated as a university-affiliated research center. So what does that designation mean? It means that it's fully funded by the federal government of the United States, which includes a whole bunch of different federal agencies, predominantly NASA, the National Institutes of Health, the Department of Energy, and the US Navy. The Applied Physics Lab has countless scientific accomplishments over the years, such as the development of the first satellite-based navigation system in 1964, which is basically the precursor to our current GPS systems. More recently, they've been doing a lot of space exploration, and they built the Parker Solar Probe, which is, you may have seen, is on a mission to the sun to gather as much information as they can. So the project Building 201, it's approximately 24,000 square meters. It's only 4 floors compared to the 40 floors total of PRED, but 4 floors of laboratories, including a conference center. It has a basement for specialized instrumentation and sensitive instrumentation, mechanical penthouse. Because of the space exploration and the other things they're doing, they also have a rooftop antenna platform. It's essentially an antenna farm, which is pretty amazing, raised up, elevated on the top of the roof. And it's kind of sandwiched between Baltimore, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. And Building 201 is the home of the Applied Physics Laboratories group called the Research and Exploratory Development Department. We like to call them RED, R-E-D-D, which is a lot easier. So RED is essentially the research engine for the Applied Physics Lab. Kind of the skunk works. They do everything there. They're conducting pioneering research, targeting game-changing breakthroughs across all of the areas of research at the Applied Physics Lab. Their motto is to fail forward. So they celebrate successes, but they also celebrate the failures of trying things that nobody has tried, and to continue to try things, and through that they reach their success. The building was designed to co-locate 650 different researchers who were coming from the primary campus is across the street from this building location. So it's outside of the primary campus, and they were taking the researchers from 8 different buildings on the main campus. So they were looking for a destination. The RED leadership wanted a facility that would break the mold and be different from all of the ordinary buildings on campus. The bulk of the buildings have very little windows. They're essentially blocks. There's no windows internal. You can't see into any of the spaces. So, they wanted to design an innovative, iconic showcase facility that would facilitate collaboration, enhance creativity, as well as provide a world-class laboratory for science, engineering, and advanced fabrication. Another view of the building. So as a showcase, they were looking for a showcase facility that is more accessible than the other campus buildings were at APL. So they can host client meetings and events in a state-of-the-art conference center, and also share their STEM outreach program for high school students. So like I said, the main campus is across the street, a busy county road, and it's because of some of the stuff that they're doing, it's very much secured. It's secured around a fence, so you can't bring everybody in there as you could to this facility being off of the campus and outside of that fence. So you can bring the students in here, you can bring guests in here. So they wanted to have it as a showcase, so you can see, looking at the atrium as you walk through, you can see throughout the building. There are some sensitive areas, which are in other locations that are not visible, but let's move on to the next section here. So organizing around collaboration. So the program was relatively balanced between complex laboratories and office type functions, zones 1 and 2. The office type functions, they also include a lot of light laboratory spaces where maybe it's computational sciences and graphics and things of that nature. As you can see on the plan on the right, this is the campus that is outside. It's only 2 buildings at this point. They have additional land that they're looking to expand, but it is independent of everything else. So we explored a multitude of strategies to organize the program to achieve the goals of collaboration as well as flexibility. We ended up selecting the hybrid solution on the right, which takes both a bar of the laboratory and a bar of the offices and splits it and separates it, creating an atrium down the middle that creates a lot of space. It creates activity and energy in the space, a lot of natural light, as you'll see in a moment. So if you look at the building here on the left-hand side, those are all of the complex laboratories. On the right-hand side are the offices, light laboratories, administrative functions. The highly sensitive program spaces are located in the basement, so we can isolate specialized equipment from sound, from vibration, electromagnetic fields, and things of that nature. And those spaces are all, as you would imagine, enclosed and don't have all of the windows. So I heard Akeem talking about coffee and so on. Well, the researchers at RED, they're fueled by coffee. That's how it works for them. So as you come up the atrium to the 4 floors, at each level of at each floor, there's a cafe, and we also have connectors to make the building as connective as possible. So connectors going through the atrium, and again, they land where there are cafes. So there's a cafe at the entrance, cafes on each floor. It's kind of funny, but I think that's maybe a theme within the research community because they're working at all sorts of hours and such. The atrium space is heavily utilized by the RED program for their own internal events, but they also, I'm going to say, rent it out. They don't actually rent it, but they make it available to the entire campus so that campus-wide activities are here. And, you know, in this image, you'll see Governor Hogan from Maryland, along with Ralph Semmel, who is the CEO and president of the Applied Physics Laboratory. And it's interesting because the folks at RED have a difficult time getting this space to use for times because, and the conference center, because everybody wants to be there and they're booking it, you know, months and months in advance. So let's talk about flexibility. So as we said, they're like the skunk works. They're working across every type of discipline and program at the laboratory. As such, there are 60 unique laboratory spaces within the building. So we have spaces, specialized spaces, such as an anechoic chamber on the bottom left, mass spectrometers, electron microscopes, ultra low humidity environments for battery development and battery testing. From the flexibility perspective, we're looking at a similar organization. We call it, Canon Design calls it the universal grid. And this is an 11-foot grid or a 3.35 meter, which works incredibly well for the laboratory spaces with the casework and fume hoods and things of that nature. Similarly, it also works for offices and meeting spaces and conferences. So it gives us a lot of flexibility. The infrastructure is also organized in a modular fashion to allow each individual module to be controlled on its own as its own zone if you wanted to enclose a module, as well as to combine any number of modules and control those as an entire zone. So you can see going from one to, you know, essentially half a floor plate to create large open spaces as may be needed for the research. And as we all know, research changes incredibly rapid these days and the new discoveries and everything. So this facility is designed to be flexible and to adapt throughout the life of the building. So RED, as I said, is a bunch of both engineers and scientists and technicians. They use each of their facilities as if it were a scientific piece of equipment. So what do I mean by that? Well, they're encouraged to modify the building. And as you see here in the laboratories, first of all, we have completely flexible and modular casework. We have services coming from carriers above the ceiling, so you can connect to those services. But you'll also notice that there's not a lot of ceiling. We have cloud ceilings above the casework areas, but the rest of it is open. And this allows for the engineers and the scientists to adapt the space to suit their needs. So it may be that in this next image here, they created an environment, a chamber in the device and you know, in front of us there. And how did they do that? It's basically they have liquid nitrogen coming into the space. They installed that themselves on the upper right top of the image there. On the bottom here is a vacuum pump. So they created an environmental testing chamber for materials that are used on spacecraft and satellites, so they can create a vacuum at low temperatures and everything to simulate the environments that materials are going to be exposed to. And you'll see throughout the facility, after we completed it, they modify and change things as they go on a daily basis. Some of the other spaces that we have there, a typical lab on the left is kind of how they start with most spaces. On the right, they adapted office space that's on the office bar. And you'll notice that the ceiling is rather high to allow for flexibility. The entire building is designed with vibration isolation on all of the floors, as well as the floor-to-floor height is designed for laboratories. So if they ever do need to use those spaces, as in this case for laboratories, they're able to do that. So in this case, this is a human performance laboratory. They took the ceilings out. They installed all sorts of cameras and lights and other equipment above the ceiling, in the ceiling, to allow them to adapt the space for the need. Other types of spaces, we have quantum computing laboratories. Again, this one has liquid nitrogen, anti-static flooring. It's a clean room environment. I think it's an ISO 10. It's either 9 or 10, but incredibly specialized spaces. Laser laboratories with vibration-controlled benches, overhead carriers. You can't see it in this image, but laser protective screens and things of that nature. And as I said, they like to adapt the spaces. So the program is fully supported and staffed with a number of shops in the building. So this picture here is a machine shop. They have CNC equipment, they have all sorts of equipment and people trained in using it. So whether they're creating a new research device or instrument, or they're developing a prototype, they have the ability to do that. So not only is there a machine shop, there's an electrical shop, a mechanical shop, an electronic shop, and an additive manufacturing suite. And many of the scientists and engineers are also kind of self-trained, and they can go in there and develop anything that they want to develop with the support of all of the facility and the staff there. As I mentioned, they have a STEM program. So they have created a space that you can see it's visible within the laboratory to the atrium, where high school students come in. They get exposed to the sciences, math, and engineering, and they're instructed by scientists that work in the building at the Applied Physics Laboratory. So it's really quite an honor to be picked to be in this program. And they have various programs. Some of them are encouraging women in sciences and math and giving them opportunities, as well as other different groups and so on. But it allows the students to be there, and because it's a public space, the parents come and sit outside of the cafe, and they get coffee too, of course, another part of the theme. So wellness and sustainability. Study has shown that movement, exercise, natural light, they enhance creativity and the ability to think and, to work through challenges and so on. So we've taken this into account throughout the design. The building is flooded with natural light from the skylights above and the glass walls throughout. The atrium stairs invite the occupants to walk instead of take the elevators, as Kim was saying. We did a tour with, after the building was complete, we did a tour of somebody from the Medical College of Wisconsin. And he walked in, and we go to the atrium area, and immediately he went to the stairs and can we go up? And we went up the stairs, and about an hour later, he's like, are there elevators in the building? And it's like, certainly there are elevators. We have to have elevators to accommodate everyone. He goes, where are they? I didn't see them. I was just so drawn to the atrium and the stairs going up the atrium, which is nice. So, and similarly, we're fortunate. We've got 4 floors, and it is used very heavily, the main stairs in lieu of the elevator. but we all agree that scientists don't like to go up and down too far. A couple of flights is really about the extent. So we've also created a multitude of opportunities for outdoor meetings, outdoor dining. On the left, you'll see a balcony within the building that is used surprisingly many months of the year. You know, in Maryland, in the Washington, D.C. area, we do have a winter and it does get cold, but you know, they probably get a good 8 or 9 months out of that space. And because it's so popular, they do have to reserve it so that you can use it for events and meetings and so on for bigger groups. But there's also underneath the cantilever section of the building, there's protected seating under that. There are park style benches throughout the grounds. The campus is also provided with bike sharing. So to get back and forth to the main campus or other buildings, a hiking path that goes throughout the entire campus with some other amenities. As far as the flexibility of the spaces, we did a number of interviews, surveys, observations. You know, as was said before, this building was designed similarly for the community that's here, for the culture that's there. And we designed it based on, at the time, who was there. So we have a whole bunch of different space types that was focused on the type of work that they do and how they would use the space today. You can see a whole series of casual seating and enclaves and touchdown workstations and so on. And they're also, they fit within the modules. So as the personnel change and the use of the building changes, so too does the space. You can adapt spaces to create more enclosed, quiet spaces, or to open it up for other types of more dynamic environments. The living room on the left, that was shell space, and that was developed by the director of the program. So it's just basically soft seating, sound attenuation. They have games, they have a library. It's just a quiet, calm space to meet. And as we talk about office functions, the office spaces are organized by teams, and they're all in open spaces. They're open stations, so you can expand and contract the teams on a floor-by-floor basis. The director, to support coming from a space across the road that was enclosed offices for everyone, the director sits out in an open space with his team as well. And it was quite an adaptation for the personnel to make that move, but it's been highly successful. So nobody has a private office. But I will say, outside of the director's office space, open office space, he has a really nice conference room that's dedicated just for his use, which is pretty nice. So the building, you know, the engineered systems and the building itself, you know, highly reliable, robust, sustainable. I could go on for hours talking about those systems as an engineer, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna stop it here to keep us on schedule. But if anybody has any questions, very happy to follow up with answers. And the client allows us to have tours. They have something where around 300, 350 tours a year. They're very proud of it. So if you're ever in the area, the Washington, D.C. area, and you're interested to take a tour, let me know, and I'd be happy to see if we can get you schedule a tour through. Thank you very much. Turn it back over to you, Rüdiger.
Yes, thank you very much for this really good inside view of this project. And I like to step directly over to the third project we have on the line today. It's a CSL Global Biotechnology Headquarter in Melbourne, Australia. And this is presented by Maximilian English. He is a Global Vice President of Sales at the Waldner Group and Managing Director of Waldner's Asian subsidiaries, including Australia. Being based in Singapore, he was involved closely with the CSL project, one of the largest scientific buildings in Australia. With this impressive background, Max is giving us an exclusive insight into one of the most exciting projects of the recent years, the CSL Global Biotechnology Headquarters in Melbourne. We are grateful for this opportunity to learn from this visionary project and the experience behind it. Thank you very much, Max.
Very good. Thanks, Rüdiger. Can everybody see in my screen and hear me as well?
So I'm not able to answer for everybody, but I can see it and I can hear you. So
Done.
in this case,
should be right. Cool. I'll keep it very short. CSL has been a very, very cool project that I'm quite happy to be having been involved with. Lab of the Year is not just about labs. It's a celebration of architecture and engineering and science. And we're all involved in many, many projects every year, but there's only so many that have the potential to, be part of the Lab of the Year process. And so was this project last year. And like Steve, you just mentioned as well, CSL didn't win. It was a contender. But part of that process, what I like about it is, you put together that nice documentary and good stuff that you can share. So all I'm sharing today is part of the submissions that we actually submitted, or Cox Architecture in Australia together with Wood on the name of CSL submitted to SEFA for the Lab of the Year award. I'm speaking about the CSL headquarters, and I'll speak a bit more about CSL in a second. It's a five-star green building in Australia. Was opened in August 23 by the Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, and reflects about a $2 billion Australian dollar investment over 4 years by CSL. So quite massive. It's about 18 stories, a few underground and then above ground, and I'll show you the section planning in a second. In total, about 53,000 square meters, out of which about 34,000 are the net area, and about 9,000 are lab area. It's mostly for CSL. There's one floor that is an incubator. So Juma Bio Incubator is if you like, an independent incubator set up by Breakthrough to promote startups to work closely with CSL in the same facility, use the same space, mix and mingle, cross-pollinate with the same people. So one of the floors is an external party, but other than that, it's all CSL, and about 40%, as you can see, is net lab area. Maybe a few words about CSL, because it's quite an interesting company. It was established in Australia in 1916, basically to produce antivenoms. People who know Australia, quite a few snakes and many more animals that can kill you. So CSL was set up to produce antivenom, but also to produce penicillin during World War II. So government set up initially. In 1994, it was privatized and listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And about 10 years later, they acquired a few companies, amongst others, Behring Werke, a former German company, set up by a Nobel laureate in medicine, Emil von Behring, who pioneered serum therapy at the time, back in the early 1900s, and is now CSL Behring as a global organization with manufacturing in the States as well, in Europe, in Switzerland, Germany, and Australia. About 32,000 people worldwide, mainly in rare diseases and influenza vaccines, as well as nephrology. So quite a diverse pharmaceutical company. It's an interesting location. So it's in the middle of Melbourne, in the biomedical precinct. They come from a bit more out of town. So Melbourne is the biggest Australian city. They relocated, and again, similar to some of the other discussions we heard today, various campuses, various locations into one. This is the building, quite a cool shape, quite prominent. So you have the Melbourne CBD skyline, and there's Queen Victoria Market, not much, and then the only other tall building in the area is the CSL building. So it's quite prominent when you drive through. Great network, great infrastructure, and right next to other major scientific buildings and universities, like the Royal Melbourne Hospital, Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre, University of Melbourne, etc. So great location in the city. As you can see here, it's really pretty much downtown. This is the CBD down here, University of Melbourne. So it's really a great location. And it was also chosen because obviously many more people in these days don't like to commute too far out the city. They live somewhere downtown. That's where they want to work as well. and that's where it was in the end chosen to be built. As you will see, and I showcase quite a few nice pictures of the architecture as well. It's a modern building with great architecture, and as you will see here, as I mentioned earlier, it used to be a horizontal campus, and for about 850 researchers, they built that vertical campus now. So, quite interesting, because obviously if you build flat, your engineering is different than if you build 70-meter high buildings or higher, like in Basel. So a very much different approach to the engineering. Same here. So it was quite a challenge, really, to get everything inside the building. It's a high-tech building, and it was an engineering challenge for the companies involved. Here you'll see a section of the building. The green part is the lab area. Level 10 is the incubator I mentioned, and they're all linked, as you will see in a second, through a staircase inside. So the staircase is repeating through the projects. They call it a tree walk in the CSL headquarters. It's the global headquarters. Obviously, there are varies around the world, but this is the global headquarters, and you can see the green, if you like, the green line throughout the building. It's the central walkway. Of course, there's elevators, but similar to what we heard before in the two presentations, obviously, often you just want to mix 1 and 2 floors, and people take that quick walk rather than take the elevator, go back to the lift. It's also quite central. Here's an image of one of these areas. So you see the lab in the background at the bottom part of the picture, with the kitchenette outside, and it's easy to connect to one of the office areas upstairs. Another view of the building, and look, it's called the tree walk also because it's in green color, like a taupish green, and it's quite visible, right? So when you go through the building, you know where the staircase are, because you can spot that color. Here's a view into the lab. In one of the labs, you will see, quite interestingly, some of the infrastructure has been fixed. So the droppers, and you will see this in other pictures, the droppers are fixed, but underneath, most of the casework, most of the cabinetry, most of the tables are loose or mobile, to make sure they can adapt as well to the change of obviously science, the change of equipment that happens all the time. As being downtown, being in the middle of a scientific precinct, CSL also wanted to make sure that they have enough space to interact with general population, with people that come in and out, clients, partners of CSL. So you will find on the ground floor many amenities, be it cafes, be it meetings, business lounges, but also, as you can see, an auditorium for in-house and extra external meetings, trainings, meeting rooms. All of that is basically consolidated at the ground floor level and the first areas. And as you go up through the building, you will find more areas for science. Here's a typical office plan. The shape of the building continues all the way throughout to the roof. So same floor plate. You see quite a large core area at the northern part of the building, and then all around a lot of open workspace, similar to what you just mentioned, Steve. It's been a trend recently, not recently, but the last couple of years, with much more open collaborative workspace rather than closed offices. See the same here. Yes, there are closed meeting rooms, but the majority of the office space and the lab space, as much as the science and engineering allows, is open. On this plan, you can see that typical floor plan. We have some isolated areas, but the majority of the lab, the majority of the open lab is in fact open, with, again, allowing for discussions, meetings, people bumping into each other rather than having their own little PI sheltered away office or lab. And that's quite a nice feature of the building, that is so transparent. It's fully glazed as well, so you can see on a good day, you can really see through. What I like as well is that very close to the labs, you have those meeting areas. So not in a different floor only, where you then have to, you lose time and ideas and thoughts as you go through the building. In the same floor, on the same level, you have meeting areas, quick, touch and go places for you to sit down, meet, rather than really having to commute through the building. Here were the 6 pillars of the design. Safety goes without saying. Obviously, compliance goes the same way. CSL and their design team wanted to create an intelligent building. what does that mean? It's really a building that also adapts, not just some lab that we built today and can't really use tomorrow, really a building that makes sense also in 10 years. So it had to be flexible. And they wanted to provide a great user experience because like everywhere else in the world, researchers are fought for by other companies, right? So they wanted to make sure the people that work with CSL stay and other people really apply. And through that incubator on level 10, potentially even have more reach out into the startups community, potential new colleagues, collaborations, co-workers. So that was the plan. Sustainability played a major role. Like I said earlier, it's a 5-star green star building. Can't get more than that. So check the box. When it comes to design principles, again, I spoke about the open design. Most of the areas are quite see-through wherever it allowed. Some of the areas can be visited as well. So you can actually go there and have a look, especially level 10. It's the easiest. But then also within the building, not many walls, as open as can be, and quite a nice biophilic design. Lots of wood, lots of nice colors, and lots of glass as well. A few views. There's quite a lot of clean room inside the building, as you can see here. And similar to what we saw earlier, the principle was a clear, say, highway of transportation, both goods and people, then branching into the individual modules. It's all PC2, that's the Australian biosafety level 2. And therefore it had to have quite strict measures of, contamination and prevention of, at the same time, horizontal movement in the building as easy as possible, because it is quite a large building that you had to get around. Here's a view into the meeting areas. Quite a nice, as you can see down here, open to the public. And that's the end of my presentation. I have many detailed pictures of the labs, since this is obviously the Lab of the Year event. I didn't want to show so many because I didn't know how we go for time. But Rüdiger, if you want, I'm happy to show a few more pictures if people are interested, or we wait for Q&A and then see if people are happy to see a bit more of the labs. Many of us see labs every day. For me, it was more interesting to show the building and concept rather than a bench. So I'm happy to stop now. We're going to Q&A, and if there's more questions, happy to share some of the pictures later.
Probably there'll be questions to this project, and we, to respect to the schedule, I like to switch over to the Q&A session, and obviously we have some questions. So, and I like to start with the PRED project, and this question I pointed out to you, Achim. As we learned, you turned into this building to 2024. And the interest is now how well are this design concept is working in real life.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It was actually a pretty good experience from May last year. We started moving in with the first chemistry labs. It was to the end of November. The more people that are in the building, the busier it got. So in the first, let's say, couple of weeks, when there was only a few dozens of chemists in the building, the avenue was still quite empty. And the cafeterias, we split them across Melbourne, the kitchen ends were quite empty. Now, the more people come in, you see them flocking into these areas, having the meetings, using these extra spaces, coming to the cafeterias. The moment we opened the cafeterias, we had long queues there because they're just beautifully made. And now, half a year in, I am happy that that the areas that we try to create where people should come together, sit down, have a video call, have a meeting, have something, they are actually used. So people are sitting there.
Okay.
You see that every now and then that you say, okay, there is a bench and people, there's a bench and a desk, but you never see someone sitting there because it may be just at the wrong place. So for our community, these ideas of how we move people through the building, where they walk, where they stop, actually that seems to work out quite well. and quite happy so far.
Okay, thank you for that. The next question I point out to Stephen. Stephen, the question is, what was the most challenge in your project?
Good question. So most challenging, the director of the program had a vision for this that he sketched out early on before we started, and we did a feasibility study that more or less came up with a similar solution. It went through the Applied Physics Lab's leadership, and they cut the budget and asked for a box again. They didn't want the open spaces and everything. So we started the project and we started the design to try to achieve that. And midway through the schematic design, they shut it down, and we were given 2 weeks to redesign it to give the director what he wanted. So he won the battle, and it was quite a moment to be one of two people presenting to the CFO and the president of the organization, and to be held accountable to achieve the budget and achieve everything that they asked for. But in the end of the day, it came through, and it is functioning as planned, and it is the destination that everybody hoped it would be.
Thanks a lot. And Max, you also focused on one question. Are there little anecdotes that should be reported during this COVID situation? What happened, where this installation happened in Australia?
It was an interesting one. It happened during COVID. The whole construction happened during COVID, including the main contractor going into insolvency and the project being picked up by another contractor to finish for the client. So that was quite, and they did it within a couple of weeks. So CSL said, let's do it. We open our pockets. We want the building finished. And that was quite challenging. Some of you might remember the Ever Given, that boat that got stuck in the Suez Canal. Obviously, our containers were not on that boat, but the whole supply chain was affected by that boat because we had about 80 containers going from Europe to Australia. And we had a lot of supply chain challenges in the beginning, including a crane at the local container loading port toppling, causing a huge delay. So it was many reasons for delays of containers, which when the shipping alone takes 12 weeks, it doesn't help, does it? So it was a very challenging project from a supply chain point of view. Obviously also not being on site, and you can't go much further than Australia from Europe. So that wasn't easy. But in the end, we came around. The project came around, and it's a great. Every time I'm in Melbourne, it's a great view. I see it from the hotel. I can see the building and the CSL sign. I'm quite proud that I was a little part of that puzzle.
Thank you very much. Well, there are no new questions in here. So in this case, I'd like to thank you all for this really inspiring session. Each of the projects we have seen today is a benchmark in our industry, not only for the technical excellence, but also for the forward-thinking approach, flexibility, sustainability, stuff like that. It's no coincidence that all of them have received prestigious recognition. What I like to do now is thank you and look ahead. We warmly invite you all to our next Labcafé Digital, where we will explore the challenge and opportunities of a new laboratory installation in an existing building. This session, we will also include a special summary of the Waldner Expert Summer Symposium in October, the longest standing event of this kind in our field. Thank you all for the participation, your questions, and your continued commitment to shaping the future of laboratory environments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.